Hello and welcome to episode 6 of When We Are Healed. I probably speak for many spiritual students when I say that I embarked on this journey wanting to be free of suffering, to have a permanent and lasting experience of peace and connection and oneness with all that is. And so I've meditated, I've said affirmations, I've gone to workshops and retreats. I've tried all kinds of things to get in touch with that peace and freedom. I was believing for most of my journey that it was some sort of destination that I'm supposed to arrive in the future, and that until I do, I'm still not good enough. But what if that peace and freedom were available to us right here and right now? That is what my dear friend and teacher, Rosalyn Rourke, is here to help us explore and experience today. Rosalyn has worked deeply in the field of psychotherapy for over 30 years, focusing on trauma recovery and spiritual well-being. After the unexpected death of her daughter Melissa, Rosalyn experienced what many would call a spiritual awakening. This led her to write the best-selling memoir and non-dual fable, When Wisdom Arrives, From Imagined Unworthiness to Freedom, which explores profound grief, body dysmorphia, mother-daughter struggles, and the release of imagined unworthiness. Recently, she also wrote a chapter titled Quantum Belonging, Embracing Life Beyond Limitations, featured in the book Become Empowered, which also became an Amazon bestseller. Rosalyn now works as a master Enneagram teacher and oneness coach, helping people discover deeper meaning, passion, purpose, and possibility through personality flexibility. And I'm so excited to introduce Rosalyn to you today because she is someone that's really helped me have a direct experience of that deep peace and spaciousness that so many of us long for, and how easy and simple it can be. She says that everyone is capable of finding the freedom of possibility when we learn to redirect our focus to the unchangeable. And in fact, later in the interview, Rosalyn leads a few guided experiences to help us really experience that. And when she does, I invite you to close your eyes, take a pause, and go to that place with Rosalyn and I, unless, of course, if you're driving or if it's not safe or practical to do so. Because having even a small glimpse into this sense of freedom can be really life-changing. So let's dive into our conversation with Rosalyn Rourke.
It's so great to be here with you. Anytime with you is a luxury. It's fun. It's exciting. It's nurturing. Mm-hmm.
Oh, my feelings all the same. Thank you. So, Rosalyn, I was thinking I can't think of the exact time that we first met or connected online, but I know that we met through Jennifer Hadley's community, Masterful Living. And I distinctly do remember the very first time I heard your voice. You were facilitating a community call, which is back then was only by phones, I think, just voice, no video. And it was basically a gathering of just the students sharing what was coming up for them, what was challenging them, what insights they were having. And you were one of the facilitators, as I recall it. And whenever you introduce yourself and say, I'm Rosalyn, and I hear your voice, like your voice had such a distinct soothing, peaceful, nurturing energy that I recognize your voice immediately and connected to it. And I remember wanting to meet Rosalyn.
Oh, so sweet. Well, that beautiful sentence and that beautiful introduction gets us started because it's 100% a compliment, and many people have resonated above anything. It's been my voice. It's not my looks, it's not my thoughts, it's not my teachings, it's not anything like that. People had commented on the voice, and I've been learning TikTok. And I talk way too slowly for TikTok. And the voice needs to be faster, it needs to be more impactful. And I'm just having fun learning it, but it just shows how everything is perception, because we're in one group, that's a strength. Over here, it's like I actually asked one of the teachers who came in, who's blowing up at a million, and I'm just having fun. But I said, how do you talk so quickly and have it be authentic? Because your tone and your speed is much like mine. And then he showed me what he did as an actor to get. And I just think it's humorous. I don't feel wrong on TikTok, but I don't feel right when it's neither. It's neither right nor wrong, right? And that's where we want to get to, because we love when we're doing it right, if you will, or when people are pleased, or it's an invitation. But it is the other side of when we condemn ourselves. So we have to let those attachments, if you will, or those, just recognize there's not a doing involved. It's just, for me, it's just a recognition. Oh, look at that pumped up feeling I just had. That's the one where I can intervene, because when it turns on you, when a person feels that imagined unworthiness, it's a little harder to stop it from going. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I want to also out myself and say that you giving me such kind encouragement and compliment on my podcast too, which I was so grateful for. But I so noticed all these thoughts just before I was jumping on this call with you of, what if I disappoint Rosalyn? What if this interview doesn't go well? What if this is the part where I find out or people find out I'm a fraud? All those
Yeah.
imagined unworthiness. I love the way you describe those imagined unworthiness, all those just
Yeah.
looping. And I heard your voice say, don't touch it.
Yeah, exactly. Just because science has shown us. I wrote that book and it's a fable form. And some people who don't know non-duality think it's a children's book, which is fine for children, but it's not a children's book. I mean, it's meant for adults. And there is neuroscience that backs up what, don't touch it. It's a cognitive break from the looping thoughts, which is how we create a new neural pathway. We can't get there from the old, well-worn path of not good enough, which is in our brains. It's really not, the minute we say neuroscience, people close down because it sounds hard. But it's really, if we just think of a pathway on a road that's well worn, or there's a new pathway where we understand that our hurtful thoughts are just our creations, they're not the truth, then we want to live in that place because it doesn't hurt. But we need to repeat it. And the only way to repeat the new pathway, the walking on the new pathway, is to interrupt the old and just say, don't add to it. The last one didn't hurt. Nothing happened. It was just a thought. But if I add to it, I've had it. the old way. That's what gets the old path going. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. So, for those of you who are listening, the book that Rosalyn just mentioned is When Wisdom Arrives, From Imagined Unworthiness to Freedom.
Mhm.
And Rosalyn, what you just said about don't touch that old thought, what you're teaching us in essence is not such a departure from a lot of spiritual or even self-help practices where we learn to be aware of the negative thoughts or emotions, and we give it to Holy Spirit, the Course in Miracles way, or you replace it with a positive thought. Or there's all these teachings, techniques around that, but I have to admit that it's one that has taken a really long time for me to really, really grasp and consistently put into practice, which is why I so appreciate your book and all the wisdom that you're sharing on TikTok and Instagram and through your weekly um, gatherings and everything, because the way you explain these concepts without so much spiritual jargon and in your own words that I feel like come from your heart has really helped me grasp it in a new way.
Well, that was why I wrote the book, because in the moment when I considered walking into the ocean to connect physically in my mind, in that second, my daughter had unexpectedly passed, for your listeners that don't know my story. And I just had a very strong urge to keep walking into the water, that somehow in that moment, it felt like in the horizon, I would be with her again. And I mean, I'm a psychotherapist trained for more than 30 years. I noticed, that's a suicidal thought. But I didn't do anything with it. And that's really from the non-dual training. And because non-duality later on helped me, it didn't help me at that moment, except that maybe my experience doing some of these things may have kicked in. I don't know, but I didn't consciously say, what does A Course in Miracles say? What does non-duality? I didn't consciously do anything except allow the next moment, which were, oh, look at that wave. Oh, look how the sand feels. All of a sudden, I woke up to the sand under my feet and the log under me. Now, I'm not saying that everybody who's suicidal needs only to look. No, I'm not saying that at all. But it's no different than you're so fat or you're so stupid or you made this huge mistake. It's anything else we say, whatever, you don't have enough money, you're never gonna, whatever. There aren't worse ones and somewhat better ones. If they're hurtful, if they start that looping that takes you down, then try and experiment. It's very simple, but people resist it because our personalities like hard things. We believe in hard things and punishing things. If it hurts, like a diet or a fast, or what do they call them? A cleanse. Or, like if you have to go through something, we really like it. And this is painless. It's easy. You don't have to study. You don't have to pay money. You don't have, like, you don't have to have a guru. Just try and see if you notice that you were into a hurtful spiral. And let me add, you don't want to hurt. Let me add that, a willingness that you don't want to hurt, a desire to stop the suffering, because truthfully, many of us don't have that. we're so used to suffering. We don't believe there's a way to not suffer. And it seems like home, like, oh yeah, I do things wrong. And oh yeah, I don't have enough money and my relationship stinks and he did this or she did that. And whatever your subject, it doesn't matter. In the story, the little girl is fat or she has body dysmorphia. She thinks she's fat. And the mother has issues with her tummy. And it's 3 generations of mothers fearing fat. So we have dynamics there, but you can substitute your own issues, your own dynamics, it works just as well. But first we have to take the my thoughts and my feelings and hold them differently. They're energies, they're not truth. There's just one sentence, it might even be in the beginning of the book. If thoughts and feelings were truth, they would be called facts. Because, you felt one way at 10 o'clock and you feel another way now. Which feeling is truth? You can't even remember them. But that's the hard one. But if you put that as the only takeaway today, your life would be changed if you held your thoughts and your feelings as just energy that passed through. They aren't yours. You got them from conditioned society. You got them from your family. You got them from repetition and memory. You remember them, and so you say them again. Nobody questioned them, and so they feel like facts. But if they weren't facts, then you could be on the alert. And then you could put in, oh, let me try what they say. Let me try it for 30 days. Don't just try it once. Try it for 30 days. Try it for a week. Try it for 3 days. And there's no failing, because if you got caught in the loops, so what? You just notice that. Oh, I got caught in the loops. Great. Look how long that took. I was about that thought and feeling for the last hour. Okay, look at that. Look at your watch. See how long you spent on that. That's it. But in the meantime, you're developing a muscle, like going in the gym, by developing your observer, because that's what you need. I'm tempted to tell you one other thing. It doesn't exactly follow, but it does. Melissa had seen an ancestral clinician, and he was also a trainer. And I had worked with him, and we'd worked with him together. And when she died, I wanted to hire him because I wanted to just reminisce about Melissa. And he had said to us how lucky we were that we'd work through this, all of this. And he said to me, I'm not going to do nostalgia with you. I thought, that's why I'm paying you the big bucks. I want to do nostalgia. That was the best icing on the cake. I hadn't written the book yet, so I hadn't clarified all of this and put it into words. I was living it, but I hadn't quite gotten the piece about memory, because people say a lot of things that don't work about grief. And one of them is they say, oh, you have your memories. Well, actually, I can't say for anybody else, but I can say for me, testing it out, every time I went into, oh, this and that with Melissa, this trip, this Christmas, it always ended in, you'll never have that again. She's dead. It always ended with a knife in my heart. Now, I can say a fact, like Melissa loved dogs, but I don't go to the memories. If I do, I immediately feel the suffering coming back. And I'll say this to other people who are grieving. It actually feels good to hurt when you believe that it's because you love the person that you should hurt. We've been taught that. So, yeah, I'll stop talking. But for some reason, I really wanted to tell you about the nostalgia and the place, because it's not just about grief. We love our memories. And just check it for each of us. How many of our memories hurt us? Oh, look how beautiful I looked when I was 25. Now look in the mirror. Is that a hurtful thought? I think so. Um, and it's the same about the future. And that's not going to be maybe so popular because we love our goals. But our goals are a way of saying what we're not happy about now.
Yeah, it's that place of lack, isn't it?
So what's the answer? The answer is presence. The answer is in what is. And you and I were talking about what if we said I is instead of I am, because I understand it has deep roots in spiritual paths. It's a little tricky because we're more connected to I am Rieko, I am Rosalind, and then the I am, yeah, right, I am. And that's the name of God, but God is separate from me, and it doesn't really pull me out anywhere. But I is, we were saying, it's so funny because it's grammatically incorrect, but it wakes us up. I is.
Yeah, it really does. And truth sometimes just doesn't sound so sexy, does it?
No, it's true. It's true. That's a really good point, Rieko, because we've been conditioned, to imagine and to really go away from what is. And imagination is great. You're an artist, you're a musician. When you take off and you create, but you're not saying when you do that that that's truth or that that's something that we have to hold on. It's a moment in time, it's a drawing, it's a music piece, and it just is also. But we've been trained to idealize, like, what kind of partner do you want? How should they be? Let me manifest that. Um, it's actually very limiting, and you don't really see who's in front of you.
Yeah, so true. And Rosalind, I have to confess, I have a thought, I have a story that's been looping about you, which is that Rosalind is someone who is awake, that she's had this awakening experience that I haven't had, where she really had an direct experience of that peace, of that real present moment where there is no suffering. And my perception is that this has been more or less a permanent shift for you since that experience you describe in the book on the beach, the shaking. How, and I know that that's a story that I'm that's in my mind, but I'm just so curious to hear, how has your life and internal experience of your life shifted before and after that moment?
Mhm. Yeah. Um, I think the story that you're running is about what it means to have had an awakening experience. And I know people call it that, but I actually think that anybody who's had such an experience doesn't call themselves that. But here's how I would describe it. The word permanent is not a correct word because nothing in life is permanent. Everything is changeable. And so I wouldn't use that word, but the way I would describe it, which is I think what you're asking, could I describe how it is for me? So how it is for me, if I were to use your word permanent, I would say home is permanently changed. So I step into Rosalyn, I step into roles where I'm a student or I'm a new TikTok learner and I make one mistake after the other, and then I go teach a class, and none of those are me. And because I can remember that. So literally, if you leave the world, you leave your home. And if you wear a bra, maybe you take your bra off at home, or you take your shoes off, or you take the pinchy earrings off. You let go at home. You know, for most people, there's a resonance with that. That home is where it is, where you let go. So I don't believe in the things that happen in the world the way I believed in them before. So they happen and I react, but I don't believe in them. I believe in the isness. This second book that I only have a chapter in, it's about belonging to the isness and a little more of that story. Because it doesn't hurt, it actually grows very easily. So you and I are both fours on the Enneagram. And what that means is that before we had any awareness, and see if you agree, we flip back and forth between not being good enough and being very special, right? Like, you're going to do something that's extraordinary, or, wow, that was like, you just, because ordinary was not attractive and ordinary was not okay. And so the reason I still teach the Enneagram, and I'm not looking for, students, this is not a promotion, but I think it's important because people might say, well, why does she teach the Enneagram? It's about personality. But the Enneagram is a way to meet people where they are and show them they're neither their strategy. Their Enneagram is their strategy. And that's a great beginning because it's only the way you've put together being in the world the best way you can, with your family, with your cultural background, with your understanding. And it's not you. So we start with it's not you. And both of those, at first the being special didn't hurt. But once I saw it was the other side of the coin of not good enough, it was like, show me ordinary. Please show me ordinary. I have no idea of why that would be the answer, but show me. And when I started to look for neither special or not good enough, and look for just being one of the many, I started to feel less separate. It was the beginning. It was the background. And there's such relief in not owning the personal life. And it's a little tricky to talk about it. All I could say is that's where the suffering is. And I had such a great dramatic teaching on suffering with Melissa, and she's still my teacher in that. Want to suffer? Keep going there. That's the way. It's so clear. Attached to the looping thoughts don't hurt. If you just have one or two or three, it's when you add to them. So I was thinking, could I use this example? Because I tend to talk about this in different settings, and I'm always looking for a better, clearer way to say it. And this one, I don't know if it'll offend anybody, but when I go to a store like Macy's, there is no help in our Macy's. There's nobody to buy the thing. There's nobody to show you where anything is. It's cavernous. There is eventually a system that you learn you could take it over somewhere. But before you know the system, there's nobody to help you. And I thought, well, I could just walk off with this item. It would be easier to steal it than it is to find someone to pay. Well, I know I'm not going to steal the thing. It doesn't hurt anybody that I thought that. It was just a thought, a passing thought. The other thoughts aren't any more valuable than that one. But because I knew I wasn't going to steal it, it was kind of funny. Like when there's, people riding their bike too close to the cars, I could have a thought like, if I hit them, will they learn? But I'm not going to hit them. And now that doesn't sound awakened like, I'm in this. No, I don't want to hit the person. I do want to go to the next store or go home. So daily life is the same, but I'm not judging myself. And I don't think there is something more solid than the isness that I get to come home to and leave Rosalyn for the next whatever. And people want to make what I'm saying as well, like you should be above the reactions, like, why? Where did that come? That's kind of in the category that if you loved your person who died, it proves your love if you suffer. Like, that's a crazy idea we've taught people. And if you put your finger near a fire or in the flame, it's going to burn or it's going to hurt. You're supposed to, when you're interacting, feel. But who is it that's feeling? Is it a separate entity that's manifesting because you're the ego in charge of the world and you can make everything happen? I don't mean to be sarcastic about that. The mind is powerful and you can get things and make things happen, but only as a part of the weather, is my experience. If the weather would like you to have that, maybe the weather gave you that idea. But it wasn't a you separate from the universe that's making everything happen. And that's what the sarcasm comes from, because people take it like, I'm so great. But then what are they going to do when something happens that is not so great, that they didn't want? It's a condition, a death. They get old, they become infirm, they can't remember the word. Then their mind goes. I mean, nobody leaves here alive. So that isn't really good preparation, I don't think, for our own deaths.
It's funny if somebody just tuned in without a context and listened to a conversation. Just on the surface, it might sound a little depressing to them that we're talking about death and how none of us make it out here alive ultimately in the body. But there's something very energetically peaceful and grounding to me about your presence, your voice, what you just shared. And it's so hard to swallow as a spiritual seeker that my identification with Rieko, this separate body, character, personality, is the exact cause of all suffering that I'm trying so hard to transcend. And yet there's a part of me that deeply resonates with that as truth, that when things are going great as Rieko, that's wonderful. But it is the flip side of the coin. And like specialness and betterness, greatness is the opposite. It comes with unworthiness and less than and lack. It's like you can't have one without the other. So and again, it doesn't sound sexy, right? It doesn't um that's I don't think a lot of people are drawn to the spiritual path wanting to uh stop identifying with who they are. A lot of us want to be a better version of us, whatever that means, right? And everything has a place and a time. But I have to say, there is something in me, and I can't say that I'm there all the time. I keep going to that place and then kind of being lured back to totally identifying as Rieko for a while throughout the day. And, but, there is a part of me that knows that isness that you're talking about, the the place that is neither special nor unworthy is where the peace is where my home is, to borrow your words. And so I have no idea how many people who are listening right now will resonate with this, but there comes a point on the path of spiritual seeking where we realize that, well, I realize that there are a lot of things shifted for the better, for more positively in my life, for which I'm so grateful for. But there are certain things, those like looping thoughts, those judgments, the negative feelings that continue to come up, and a lot of them are very repetitive. And for the longest time, I really fought that. I thought I was failing as a spiritual student, that those things were still coming up. And I judged my thoughts. I judged my feelings. I judged my spiritual progress, for lack of a better word. But what I so love and appreciate about your teaching, Rosalyn, is that you're saying that we can be free of all that right now.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go through some traumatic suffering in order to have that awakening experience. You don't have to, you can have that freedom right now, right where you are.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Can I give you a few key words that maybe your listeners will find exciting? And maybe they
Absolutely.
won't. It's hard for me to go back to what I thought was attractive. Um, Let me just say one thing about the death business. The death business, it's depressing, and that's what we've been taught. And I would dearly love to do my TEDx talk about dead wrong about death. Death, as a matter of fact, I want to create a summit. I'm going to pull out this piece of paper that has the wording close anyway. Death is a gateway to unexpected life filled with purpose, passion, and possibility. And I have a list of about 20 words where, just like dead wrong, where society has taught us death is bad. You died on stage, words like that. It's a conditioning that we've been taught that life is good and death is bad. And it's just an error, like the sun rises and the sun sets. We don't care when we teach and are conditioned repetitive things, whether it's true or it's not. It bypasses that. We have a phenomena going on where we scare people about death. So this isn't a conversation about death, but I just wanted to put that in there, because that's just a whole other conversation. But for your listeners and for you, the alerts are in certain words: seeker, transformation, awakening, and healing. You didn't say that one here, but it's in your material. And those words all reflect a belief, if you will, of lack. Something's not here now. So, can we close our eyes a moment? And what if that was not true? That's just our training. What if we've been taught to see something that's missing and something that could be there, should be there? But let's step into just this moment, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. We have our chair, or for your listeners, if they're walking or if they're standing, they're sitting, if they're laying. Just feel this moment, feel your body. If you have pain in your body, notice how there might be tension around it and open to it. How is it? Not it hurts, but is it big? Is it small? Where does it begin? Where does it end? Allow it to be as big as it wants to be. Allow ourselves to be part of this room. Where do we end? Where does the room begin? Maybe we start with it's our bones and our skin. Let's just energetically push out with our arms imagined stretched out and push out into the room just with your imagination. Now, where does the room end and where do you begin? There's air inside the room, and there's air outside the room, and there are walls that are artificially separating this air from that air, but it's just air. And what if all the bodies belong, like everything belongs to the weather, to life? We might look at a tree and it looks separate, but that underground you can't tell where are the roots. They're all connected. Which tree is how old and which tree is younger, which tree is older. And when a storm happens to that tree, it's just the interconnection of the forces at that moment. That tree didn't cause itself either to weather the storm or to be struck down. And that hurts the ego if we take that to be us. But if the ego is just your personality strategy for getting along in the drama outside, what relief would that be? If if it's just like a story that we're playing, and today Rieko is the host, and I'm the guest, and you're the listener. And another time you'll be the guest and you'll be the host and someone else, right? We take these different parts and then we make them real and important and create stories around them. And some are good and some are bad. And we can get invested in what we like and what we don't like. Nothing wrong with that. It's entertaining. But where it hurts is to put all of our beliefs in that. We don't know what death is, and we actually don't know what life is, but they're defined by each other. And the closest we can get to saying we know what life is to identify that we're alive. We know we're breathing. We know that I see you and you see me. Come back to the room. And right now, how does that feel if I were to ask you, is that enough? Do you need something else for peace?
No, I don't need anything else. And not only that, I think there is nothing else.
Yeah, but if I'm your listener, and then I might say, yeah, that's all very nice. That's fantasy. But now I have to pay my bills and I don't have the money. And yes, you can make yourself feel terrible again. And you can say that you're you and you have to do this. But there's another way to address the rent that's due at the first of the month. And instead of hurting yourself about the rent, you can say, well, okay, I'm alive and rent seems to be due, and stay open to where the movements are. Are the movements to get a job? Are the movements to do something with your bank account? Are them just be the recipient of the movements, because people get afraid that they won't do anything. They won't try if it's not coming from an ego or personality, that the striving will be gone. I'm here to say you will have less barriers to putting yourself out there because you don't have little voices doubting you and you're not separate. So nothing, I mean, I don't even like saying words like that because you feel separate. Look, your eyes look like you're separate. But home is maybe that place where you're the tree, just like the tree with roots, and you'll respond to the weather. And you will be active, even more active without all the chatter. But you have to try it on. Once it gets to conceptual, we start losing it. Let's talk about movement a minute because that sounds conceptual and theoretical. But have you ever, Rieko, had something from your mind, a to-do thing, and there's no movement to do it?
Mhm.
Could you make yourself do it anyway, or do you just not do it and then say, I should have done it? I know I need to do it.
How do I explain this? So in the moment where I think I can't do it, there is no movement, but there might eventually be a movement later.
Later,
Yeah.
But in that moment, I'm trying to remember, I know that when there's no movement, I just can't do it. And so I'm wondering if there are certain people that can make themselves do it, or if when there's no movement, you just can't do it for everyone. But then you blame yourself. I should have done it. It was on the list, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing, whether you can override the movement is an unknown question to me, whether anybody can. But what we're missing when we're all in our heads making up what we should do, let's say for the rent. Oh my God, the rent is due. I don't have it. I'm going to have to ask this person, or I'm going to have to ask my, whatever it is your mind says. But what if we look for the movement in everything we do? It cuts out a lot. Is there any movement to go to my boss? No. Is there any movement to get a loan? No. Huh. Well, then I guess I better wait for the information. Something, if people experiment with that, it's a different way to live. It's not coming from, I know there's a lot of people who believe in intention, but that's only what you thought of. And there's so much more out there than what you thought of. So if you wait for the inspiration rather than your intention, wait for the movement to give you the next move. It's really what we talk about when that's another way to talk about surrender without it being two, because you are an embodiment of the movement. You are an embodiment of the one.
And is that movement, the listening to that movement, would you say is what's moved you to write this book, to put yourself out there the way you've blossomed so beautifully into a leader and teacher over the past couple of years?
Yeah, it's entirely the movement. Even the TEDx proposal has its, my mind, the Rosalyn mind says, well, today's the day. Might be the day, might not be the day. But it doesn't happen if I don't listen. I mean, I listen to the movement on everything, and the personality has reluctance to be this visible, to like, well, I never wanted to write a book. Uh, do we have time to tell you a quick story about how I came to write the book? Okay. So I had no interest in writing a TEDx talk either. Like, I was retired, Melissa had died. There was no interest in doing anything. Like, what would I do and why? Had a second house, had a beach, we had friends. There was no motivation. And I was hearing from Melissa, I hope that doesn't freak people out, but I was very, very connected. And until the time she said, you're no longer going to hear it in my voice. You're going to feel it in a neutral capacity because you're too attached to my voice, which I was. I was hearing from her, do this, do that, do this, do that. And believe me, I was doing it, but I had some attitude. So, you know how things come in your email, unwanted or wanted. And it was like this summit, and it was about your glass ceiling. And I heard, do it. So I don't have a glass ceiling. I'm not making any money. Nobody's telling me what I can and can't do. I don't have a glass ceiling. It was like, do it. So I'm like, I don't want to do this summit, but I do it. And I'm listening to these people, and it's like one person's talking about my eating disorder. And I'm thinking, you're telling us you still have it by calling it my eating disorder. And I want to write to her, I still have my bad attitude. I don't know why I'm here. I don't, I'm listen to another person, listen to another person. So I'm following the movement, even though I don't agree with the movement. Movement is 100%, watch this thing. Then someone comes on about TEDx. I went, oh, that is my glass ceiling. Other people do TEDx. I don't do TEDx talk. What would I do a TEDx talk on? And that was the beginning. So then, of course, I sign up for the TEDx talk. I follow the movement. I have all along, even when it's a bad attitude, I follow. And so I went to the TEDx thing. And then a speaker came in there to talk about books. And she said, anybody in here, raise your hand if you've written a book or if you would like to write a book. Every hand went up but mine. And then she gave a free week. And it was during COVID. So it was an entire week you could do from home. I was so enthralled and so mesmerized by the movement in that week. I'm sure I was the first one to sign up for this very expensive course. I've never paid that much money in my life to write, and I didn't even want to write a book. But so it's been like that. And then I dropped the TEDx, and now the TEDx has come back because I wasn't ready. The movement, again, I was not ready to write that TEDx talk then, but now I am. So the movement.
Yeah, thank you. I love the word movement here because I think words like choice or guidance can come loaded with maybe an expectation for it to be something that's good, something that helps it go my way, or something that only people who are spiritually talented have access to.
Yeah, no, we all have movement. It's a yes in the body or a no. And it's not complicated. It's not, what do you think? You can have your attitude, but follow the movement. And I don't always understand it. Often I rarely understand it until later. Until later.
Oh, Rosalyn, thank you. This conversation has taken me to such a deep place that I can't quite describe in words. And I hope that those of you who are listening could feel this energy of this spaciousness, this calmness, the to borrow your words, Rosalind, the okayness beyond the duality of good and bad. That we're all here. We're here. We're connected. Words can't do it justice, but it's here, and we can all access it right now.
Yeah.
And I so recommend Rosalind's offerings for anyone who resonates with this, who people who are tired of seeking, people who are seeing that their search, their seeking for specialness, for accomplishments, for to fulfill what they see as lack is what's causing the suffering. And Roslyn is such a gentle, compassionate, authentic guide to help you connect to that directly, that peace inside of you. So, Roslyn, how can people find you?
Best way to go is rosalynrourke.com. But you can sign up for my Thursday musings. It's a video blog that I send out. It's free every Thursday. Or you can come and be with me twice a month for glimpses. It's on the website as well. And those are 2 free offerings. And then if you want to do my little training, my mini training on imagined unworthiness, that's free also. So those are some ways on the website.
Thank you. And also, Rosalyn's books, again, are When Wisdom Arrives. And the one that she has a chapter in is called Become Empowered.
Thank you, Rieko. That's very sweet.
So, would you be up for taking us through a quick centering back into the isness, the okayness?
All right. So we've had a lot of conversations, and we've been in our heads and we've been in our hearts. And now it's time to just let go of our judgments, our impressions, our attractions, anything we think we still need, anything we don't like, they're all okay. And the vessel that notices what we liked and what we didn't like, and noticed the stirrings in our hearts, and noticed what we did understand and what we didn't understand. There's a vessel, and it starts with the body. And then let's go back to the observer who observes our thoughts and our feelings. And the observer, the first layer, has a stake in it. How am I doing? Am I getting it? Will I find the okayness? Can she take me there? These are just examples. But the observer still wants what the personality wants. Now breathe. Breathing in, breathing out. And there's something that notices the observer. It's behind and around. It actually has no location. You're observing that you have an observer. Now we're somewhere a little more distant from wanting, needing, craving. We're just noticing thoughts, noticing if they're hurtful or if they're happy, if you're getting pumped up or getting pumped down. Not bad, not good, neither. Just is. I is. Means I'm alive with no qualifications, no stories. What would it be like to live without a story? I'm good, I'm bad, he's good, she's bad. We have moments between our breaths. We have actually moments between thoughts and feelings, but we're not trained to notice them. Every night before we fall asleep, we let the world go. We let it go. And yet we're not asleep yet. That's the place the witness lives. The witness is a name for this that is aware of the observer and doesn't care so much. Even mistakes can happen, and they can even be humorous. Oh, look, clenching because a mistake happened. How silly. We start to have a perspective where this becomes home if we visit often enough. Because think of it in the world, when you have a home, it's where you go most often for most of us. Some people have a home they don't live in, but if we live in our home, it's just what we come back to. And you can go back out in the world and have your opinions, have your feelings, have your thoughts, but you don't have to make them the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail can be in letting the world go. And then, if you will, identifying with that emptiness that's filled with peace and filled with okayness, because your opinions and your thoughts and your feelings are not in the forefront. And you could pick them up again, and you will pick them up again. And they're all fine because they're not yours. They're just come through you. They're part of life. They're part of conditioning. But you are something much more unnameable and much more unlimited because it's unnameable. You're the definition of life. You are the embodiment of the divine, and there is only that. And that comes with opposites that show up in the world. And we don't have to be afraid or hate the opposite of life. It's part of the life cycle of breathing in, breathing out, liking, not liking, winning, losing. None of it is what matters. It's the perspective from this witnessing, which is always available to us. Thank you all. I love being here with you.
Thank you, Rosalyn.
Thank you, Rieko. Thank you, everybody who listened till the end. What a treat you are for us. Yeah.
Thank you. If you enjoyed this episode, I invite you to come check out our Substack at whenwearehealed.com, where you can subscribe to keep in touch and get show notes emailed to you. Sending you lots of love, and I'll see you in the next episode.